WNST, Tassel, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are positively in Ocean City, Maryland, and every year this guy, he works hard the other 364 days of the year, but every year you get out of bed early, you come here for breakfast at Mako, and you demand crab cakes. We welcome Senator Ben Cardin back onto the program. I planned retrospective today with you, and all you want to do is do Orioles with me, right? That's what you start.
Oh, absolutely. Look, we're had the best record in the American League. No one expected the Orioles to do what they're doing now. They've not only rebuilt a great team, they have a great future, and we're very excited. Great to watch them. A lot of fun.
Well, I know you're not in charge of the lease, so I'm going to leave that for Wes and for the Stadium Authority. Tell me about this last year. You've made this decision that you've been serving people a long, long time. How's this fading out party going for you, or are you sprinting to the finish line?
Oh, I still have a year and 4 months, so there's still plenty of time left. And a lot of things I need to get done. I'm working very hard right now on small business issues to help our small business community. I was in Berlin yesterday and saw businesses that are doing great, but they have challenges. We got them through COVID, through legislation we got passed, but they needed continued help. Chesapeake Bay, working on that. Still have a lot of things going to get done on the Chesapeake Bay. International human rights, I'm one of the leaders on that. So there's a lot of things. Baltimore City trying to help.
Baltimore City, that's where I want to put my focus with federal money. What does this mean to the citizens? I mean, I think there's a lot of people on our side of the aisle, I would say. Oh, we got West in Annapolis, we got Ben and Chris, they're federal money. What is this 5 or 10 years from now when you come back and look at this? What's getting done right now?
So it's Team Maryland. It really is. We're not trying to say this is a state problem or this is a municipal problem. Or we're saying this is we have to be in partnership, Team Maryland, to help Baltimore. They have challenges. The first issue is public safety, and we have to bring down the violence in Baltimore. And we've seen a decline in violence in Baltimore. So we are seeing some progress being made, but more needs to be done. So the federal delegation has made this a priority. We're working with the U.S. Attorney, Eric Barron. We've got him some additional resources in order to help in regards to the partnership that he has in regards to the strike task force that has been set up that includes all the law enforcement offices at the federal, state, and local level to help Baltimore City deal with public safety. We have a new state's attorney, as you know. We're working with him to get the type of preparations from the police department so that they can prosecute successfully violent crimes. So we're all working together to help Baltimore deal with public safety. Now, there's a lot of other issues. We have a lot of economic development issues going on in Baltimore. Under the infrastructure bill, Baltimore is getting funds to reconnect the Mulberry-Franklin corridor, which is a real great opportunity. We have the state that's provided money for the 2 stadiums, and there's a lot of things going on there. We have Baltimore Peninsula. It's a very exciting project in Baltimore. We have the Frederick Douglass Tunnel for Amtrak that we got the funds for that is going to make it easier for Baltimore to be a hub for economic growth. We have now the proposal that came in under the CHIPS and Science bill from the Baltimore region to be a tech hub. But there's so many things going on that the federal government can work in partnership with the state and local government to help Baltimore grow. As Baltimore grows, Maryland grows.
Well, I mean, you're sitting at a time when we had COVID and a plague and PPPs and people are home. The inflation, the things that have happened in the economy, the Inflation Reduction Act, I would think for you and Senator Van Hollen to sit here today and talk about people ask all the time, what's being done in Washington, what's being done? I think our way of life has come back dramatically in the last 18 months to 2 years. Just traveling the country and traveling, it's not perfect, but it's certainly a lot better than it could have been given where we were in the plague.
Well, we've had incredible challenges that have been thrown at us, including the COVID pandemic, which really closed our economy down. We have a war in Ukraine caused by Russia's aggression that has caused a disruption in energy costs and inflation. We've had a lot of challenges, but we've responded to that. Under the Biden administration, we've seen record passage of bills that are making a difference. Once in a generation infrastructure that's rebuilding our roads, our bridges, our transit systems. Money for the Chesapeake Bay was included in that, broadband, our ports, our airports. That was a once in a generation, and those funds are now getting out there, and we're seeing the progress that are being made on our transportation infrastructure and our broadband. Well, we passed the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, which is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to become energy independent and friendly towards our environment and to unleash technology in our region for good jobs in the future and friendlier to our environment. Look, we all mourn what happened in Maui. It was horrible. But we also recognize we have a responsibility for a more gentle footprint on our environment, on what we do, and we have a chance to do that under the Inflation Reduction Act. Bringing down healthcare costs also was in that bill. So there's a lot of good things happening. But on top of that, there's still challenges. We know that. American families are struggling to make ends meet. And we have to deal with those bread and butter issues. We've got to deal with energy costs. We have to deal with healthcare costs. We have to deal with good wages and wages keeping up with productivity increases in America, which we fell behind for so many years. So there's a lot of things we still need to do. So I am proud of the accomplishments that we've made. I'm proud of the job growth numbers that we've seen. But let's keep that momentum going, and let's try to find a way to bring civility into politics. I want to get as many Democrats elected at election time as possible. When the election is over, let's work together and get things done. I've always done that throughout my career. I believe in civility. I believe in working with Republicans to get things done. We need to have more of that in Washington.
The Statesman, Senator Ben Cardin, joining us here. We're at Mako in Ocean City. It's all brought to you by the Maryland Lottery and Window Nation. We're going to be back on the Crab Cake Tour on the 29th. We're going to be Pappas with Anne Arundel County Executive Stuart Pittman. Saw him the other day. Looking forward to chatting with him. We're going to have Mayor Brandon Scott on with us. Odette Ramos is going to be here, as well as Emily Keller. We're getting a lot of things going on. But for you with inflation reduction, we talked about the COVID. And, look, my parents were born in 1919, so a little older than you even, and my dad would always talk about the New Deal and FDR, and I grew up in that household with Kennedy, all of that 50s and 60s sort of idealism, and how the country got rebuilt. And I thought about COVID in this way, and what Biden sort of inherited on the backside of just a horrific 4 years of an administration, right? And lies and all the things that we're seeing now. But it's almost like what all of you have been through was like sort of a post-wartime rebuild to some degree. We don't want to talk about that like in America. We were falling apart a little bit. But I think on the back end of the plague, what you guys have inherited the last just 2-3 years sitting here with you having a crab cake every year to measure, to say, how's life today? Well, the masks are off. Yeah, gas prices are up, but we're having a rejuvenation, I think, in the country. When I travel around, I feel like I see that there's new energy on the back end of, it wasn't a war, but it was a war with a virus, really.
Well, I agree. I think we got a little bit too relaxed in keeping our country at its top edge, dealing with technology, dealing with job growth, dealing with education. We lost our edge, and we need to get that back, and I think that's what we're doing right now.
You have to identify the weakness, though, right?
Right.
Literally.
And we unleashed something in this country that I didn't think I would see in my lifetime, and that is the use of disinformation and conspiracy theories to unleash a lot of dangerous activities in America, including violent activities. So we have challenges that we have to deal with, but I think we recognize that. You first have to identify it. I think we have identified it. I think we have a game plan. I think the key here is going to be let's have competitive elections, but when elections are over, let's govern.
Our state, just in general, and the changes we've been through this last couple of years, I'm going to wind up talking about stadiums and the city, but for you, Baltimore's always been home for you, right? I mean, it's been the base of all of this. And when I hear people on the shore talking about Baltimore, I don't go there. I think there's a sense that the Orioles, as much as anything, deliver. And I had Carl Anderton over here, Republican, a state delegate from the Eastern Shore. He said, we drive to Baltimore all the time. We tell people to drive to Baltimore all the time. I say, we need more people like you. But sports brings people to the city. And Barry Manilow last night, and Earth, Wind, and Fire this weekend. I mean, there are things going on in our city that everyone in the state should be proud of if they're not watching the right news program, right?
Oh, you're absolutely right. Look, I'm a proud resident of Baltimore. I haven't spent a night in Washington since I've been a United States Senator. I come home every night.
That's true.
All these years. I love the Baltimore region. Every weekend, almost every day, Myrna and I are out someplace in Baltimore. We're walking, enjoying the neighborhoods, and it's a great city. It's a safe city. You got to be smart wherever you are in this country. We recognize that. There's danger that you have to try to avoid. So we recognize that there are risk factors, but we think this is a great city. It has great history, and we think a great future. But it does need partners. It needs partners in the private sector. It needs partners in government. We need the entire energy to keep Baltimore where it needs to be moving forward.
Well, you mentioned Peninsula and you mentioned chips, and we were all waiting for something on our cars, things that were coming from Asia, things that were coming from other countries. Being self-reliant and self-dependent. You said maybe we got away from that a little bit, from manufacturing from where we were maybe 100 years ago. The Baltimore Peninsula thing, I've been in from the beginning on that, where I'm so old that I remember Stedman wanting to put the stadium down in Port Covington, right? And the
right.
port coming in. When we go by and see that, and it looks a little ghost towny in the beginning, and there were TIFs and there were all of these things, where's that going to be 10 years from now? I mean, there's a vision that's coming now because you see this sort of shining city there now. And I'm like, there are going to be people living there. I'm going to drink beer there. I'm going to eat food there. I'm going to enjoy good people I know are going to live there. It's just not there yet. And I think that's hard to see over the hill for some people.
Well, our parents' generation saw the Inner Harbor as a working harbor where nobody wanted to go down at all to other than
fish and wharf and all that, right?
And now you see what the Inner Harbor is all about. I think Baltimore Peninsula is similar to that. We can remember what used to be there. And when you try to project the future, they just recently announced they're going to have the beachfront with the volleyball and the pickleball courts and open to the community. There's going to be a lot of activity there that are going to strengthen the neighborhoods around Baltimore Peninsula, bring in economic growth and tourism. And when you think about that, if you can connect that to the improvements being made at the two stadiums, if you can connect that to the Mulberry-Franklin corridor to have some type of a bridge to different communities, there's a lot going on. Pimlico Racetrack, they're talking about making that into a venue more so than just a racetrack. All that connects communities, strengthens the neighborhoods, which has been Baltimore's strength over its history. Strengthening the neighborhoods, if we can deal with the public safety and the education and those issues, these economic development tools will be extremely valuable to Baltimore's future.
You know, I did sports 25 years, and the more over the last decade since I started talking to people like you, and I'm in a city every day of my life. I've lived there 20 years. I'll be there for Earth, Wind, and Fire and Lionel Richie on Saturday. I'll be there for an Oriole game next week. I go into the city. I don't think about barriers of Anne Arundel County or Howard County or Harford County or Baltimore County. It just is what it is. But the red line thing is from being a city resident and being in other places where I go to New York and I get on the tube and boom, I'm in Brooklyn, right. Or I go to Paris or other places like that. The red line's something that you've been fighting in and out on, and we talk about divisive politics and division. I mean, Larry Hogan sat next to me, and Don Moeller said to him, "Why'd you kill the red line?" He said, "I ran on it and I won. I made a promise to kill it and I killed it." And I'm thinking to myself, now we're going the other direction again about moving people around and a federal investment in a city. People say, well, why are all of us investing in something that only some of us use? And I'm thinking to myself, this is how Baltimore would get back. I mean, the more I talk to people, transportation, food, affordable housing, jobs, crime obviously sitting on top of all of that. But moving people around is such an issue that people in a car out in the suburbs don't understand. Getting an hour and a half to get to your job on a bus is just not a tenable situation for the employee or the employer, because I've talked to both of them.
Public transportation is critically important today, even more important tomorrow. When we try to project where we're going to be 10 years or 15 years or 20 years from now, public transit becomes absolutely essential. We recognize that rapid rail has to be part of public transit because of the convenience and time and traffic that you're talking about. It also takes more of the vehicle traffic off the roads, help more friendly towards our environment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, it benefits the individuals directly that are trying to get from point A to B, either to work or to play or to see the family, whatever. It does help the individual. It makes it easier for that individual to be economically successful because they're not trapped in a community. They have a broader area in which they can seek to get economic growth. But it also helps the community generally. Everybody's benefited by it because the shop owners will have more customers, the restaurants will have more sales, the Orioles will have more people attending the games. It helps everybody. It helps the whole community. So this is about the health of Baltimore, Maryland, and our nation. That's why I'm such a strong proponent for small businesses. To me, small businesses are the growth engine of America, but they have to have customers. They have to have workers. And they need, we're in a rural part of our state here in Ocean City, they need to be able to to have the ability to bring workers in. They have to be able to get what they need for their small businesses to grow. And it's a quality of life issues. We want to have in our neighborhoods stores and shops. Transit's all part of that. Transit development is another area that we can help a community grow. A transit stop should be a growth hub for a community, and that's been underutilized certainly in Maryland, and we want to utilize that much more in the Baltimore region.
Well, anytime I go anywhere else, you see the real estate around traffic hubs worth more money because you can walk to be to work in 15 minutes. Senator Ben Cardin, always kind enough to join us down here at Mako in Ocean City. So I talked city issues. I want to talk some. You give me a hard time about all these crab cakes. I'm going out to Western Maryland, Eastern. The one thing I've learned, and I get off of 50 now. I was kidding former Mayor Jake Day. Nobody gets off 50. You go straight to Ocean City, straight home. I've been on all these back roads now. The communication issues for broadband, and I mean, we talk about public safety and transportation in the city and food deserts and things that are city issues. One of the biggest issues anywhere outside the Beltway, when you start moving into southern Maryland, going to the mountains of Western, getting anywhere off of 50, is my cell phone doesn't work. I can't text my wife. I can't get I can't get information. And I think to myself, children in these environments, schooling, the Zoom thing during the plague, all of that, but basic communication that 30 years ago we never would have known we needed, right?
Right. No. Connectivity is critically important. It's important for businesses. It's important for people in their homes to be able to participate fully. It's important for students. It's absolutely an essential part. It's like a utility. It is a utility. I mean, it's an essential part of your life. COVID really brought that home to the American people. We are fortunate in Maryland in that we have what's known as the superhighway for broadband. So every part of Maryland is within a close distance to high-speed internet service. We need last-mile connections. We've been pretty successful in getting last-mile connections for our businesses, but there's still many homes that do not have that type of connection. So we are working under the infrastructure bill to bring in more broadband. Under the USDA, the Department of Agriculture has programs for broadband in the rural areas. Maryland has a game plan. We want to see every household connected with affordable high-speed internet.
All right, I want to talk retrospect. I said I'd be retrospect. Do you put any thought into what happens 17 months from now? Just what the rest of your life is going to be and what causes you're going to serve? Because you say I'm a full energy. You're like the duck paddling under the water and all calm up top. But what's the rest of your life going to be when you don't do this? And I'm sure you studied some other friends of yours that have moved on. So
first, let me tell you the thought process. I had to make a decision, which was basically an 8-year decision, because I have to. It's a 2-year term to run for the office and a 6-year term afterwards. And I had to recognize at the end of my next term, if I ran for re-election, I'd be 87 years old. And you have to recognize the realities of age. I am going to sprint to the finish line. I guarantee you I'm going to be extremely busy dealing with the issues that we've already talked about. And I intend to continue with the priorities that I've always believed in. Our environment, the Chesapeake Bay, to deal with international human rights and human rights here at home, to deal with the Baltimore City, to help Baltimore, and to deal with quality education. These are issues that I've always dealt with. Healthcare, access to healthcare. One of the issues I'm very proud about was establishing the National Institute for Minority Health and Health Disparities to deal with pediatric dental care after the tragedy we had in Maryland with DeMonte Driver dying in 2007. So I'm going to continue those efforts, but just not as a United States Senator. There are other ways that I can contribute.
Anything you want to say about elections or where we've been from 2020 to 2024 or the ideology? It is interesting coming to Mako and, having a sitting more Democrats in office, probably based on the way Trump ran the country. But for the future, what do you feel when you're out about divisive politics and Trump and indictments and all that? What do people talk to you the most about when they bump into you?
Well, I guess my message is, as I said earlier, civility. Let's listen to each other. Let's try to get more bridges. And let's all resist the use of disinformation, intentionally trying to mislead people. Donald Trump took that to a new level with the election deniers and the conspiracy theories concerning that, which led to violence on January 6th. We need to have a lesson in history and civics, and I would urge all of us to be advocates for better knowledgeable constituencies.
Who's going to win bring us a title first, Orioles or Ravens? I'm wearing orange today, just so you know.
Oh, I think. Look, the Orioles will get there first because the World Series will be October. When they win the World Series in October, there's still plenty of time for the Ravens to win the Super Bowl in February.
From your lips to our creators' ears, that you and I would be together in March, celebrating 2 titles here. But you lived through the late '60s, so you remember all this, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. I know the championship years.
The pain of the losses to New York and the thrill of victory, right?
Well, the Baltimore Colts go back a while.
Yeah, I got my belt buckle back in the day. Senator Ben Cardin always spending time. So you got a crab cake for me? You gonna take me out for a crab cake at some point when this is all over?
Well, you got Pappas coming in. I'm sure they're bringing you a crab cake.
Man, I am so blessed. I mean, we're going to be at Pappas on the 29th. I do business with Coco's and Costas. We're going to be at Fadley's downtown in Lexington Market. So we go into the city and make this happen.
Yeah, we didn't talk about Lexington Market reopening. There's a lot going on.
Well, I'm going down to the arena on Saturday night, and there's a whole different experience there as well. And I have a vision for the Inner Harbor. I know you were there the day that Mayor Schaefer handed the keys over, and part of that. There's going to be another renaissance of that. I think that project is so discussed that I don't know that we can screw it up. I think we're going to talk that project's going to be great again when we make it great.
Oh, absolutely. And the redoing of the Inner Harbor is going to be very important. We will need someone to substitute for Donald Schaefer to jump into the fish pond. Maybe,
be a leader.
Maybe you'll do that.
I got a rubber ducky. I'll even wear that little outfit he wore. Were you there that day?
I was, yeah.
Senator Ben Cardin's been there for everything. 16 more months. He's sprinting to the finish line. It's all brought to you by our friends at Maryland Lottery in conjunction with our friends at Window Nation. I'm going to let you go and serve the people and represent the people, but it's always fun to visit with you. And Dr. Dave Sigmund says hello to his Uncle Ben Cardin. He's a longtime listener.
David, I've known David since he was born, and very proud of what he's been able to do in healthcare for our community. He's a great guy, and he's a lot of fun to be with.
Well, I mean, I'm a little mad at him. He went to Portugal a couple weeks ago. He didn't bring me back the pastéis de nata. I probably would have gotten wrecked.
He gave me that bottle, so he said it was for you, and I still
stop. We'll share that. My appreciation to Senator Ben Cardin out on the front lines down in D.C. Trying to make things. So we covered all inflation reduction. We did chips and science. We didn't do PACT Act. Did we anything there? We did infrastructure, jobs act.
Well, PACT Act is two community health centers coming to Maryland. We have a new one in Prince George's County, a new one in Baltimore City. The CBOCs, these are the community veterans facilities. So yes, that's in addition to, of course, covering our veterans on toxic exposure. So that was an incredibly important bill.
We don't do enough for our veterans. That's my opinion.
No, you're absolutely right, but we're now changing that. If you remember a few years ago, the wait lines for veterans health care, we brought that down substantially. Secretary Madonna is really doing a great job as Secretary of Veterans Administration. We are really focused on not just saying how much we appreciate those who've worn the uniform, but doing it by our actions.
I'll just give you I'll give you a citizen story that because we're having fun here today, and your staff's giving me a little, Sarita's giving me a little extra time. My father-in-law is a Vietnam veteran, and my wife had her life saved by a man in Germany on the bone marrow registry, which I'm sure 20 years ago you were part of trying to set that up to save my wife's life through medicine. So she wants to go over to Germany, and she's going to go. He loves the NFL. They're going to go to a football game over in Frankfurt, see the Colts. Yeah. The Indianapolis Colts play Patriots, and her dad's passport's expired, and he's 78 years old, and he's perfect health, and he's lazy to send it in. And I said, the man served us in Vietnam. Does he not have? Can he have someone in the military advocate and just get his 78 years old? Get his passport done so we can go over to Europe and expedite. And I'm thinking, how can people that served us not have a valet? I have a Marriott Rewards representative. You know what I mean? Like, how can we not have a representative to get him done? So that's it. I just think veterans and people that served us in war should move to the front of the line for everything. That's what I believe.
We do have veterans preferences. In my area, small business, we have veterans preferences in the Small Business Administration. I think your suggestion is a valid one, and we do try to show our appreciation by our actions for our veterans in many different ways, including priorities in certain areas.
All right, Dan, get your passport to the office and pay the $80 and get it expedited. Yeah. That's for my father-in-law to send him over to Europe later on. Thank you very much for always spending time with me.
My pleasure.
You come by, you have good sense of humor with me, but one day we'll sit in an Oriole game together and have a beer and a hot dog and cheer them on. They're in first place, man. It's been beautiful to have it back. It really has been on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
They didn't play last night. I felt like, what am I going to do? West Coast.
Well, the West Coast is a little late at night. You stay up for those late games?
I did Monday. I fell asleep Tuesday. Senator Ben Cardin joining us here. We're at Mako. It's all brought to you by the Maryland Lottery in conjunction with our friends at Window Nation. Senator Chris Van Hollen, Mayor Brandon Scott, the Honorable Odette Ramos, Councilwoman, going to be joining us here. I am Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore positive, even with our 25th anniversary cupcake logo. Stay with us.